So, hello and welcome everyone to the Turn 5 podcast. A bit more of a muted start because we're going to start by talking about Formula Regional European by Alpine, uh, where unfortunately, young driver Diano van der Hoff sadly lost his life at Spa in the wet conditions, which is always unfortunate. That's something we never want to see. We always talk about how good safety's got in the sport, but it's instances like this that just remind you of the dangers of motorsport, really. Um, and yeah, it's a young talent that we've lost far too soon.
Yeah, it's a shame. He won the 2021 Spanish Formula 4. So, he was pretty damn talented.
Mm.
Um, Again, it was the Eau Rouge Radion complex that resulted in this crash.
From what I understand, it was actually further
Further
along
up, it
the
was,
Kemmel
Yeah.
Straight. Yeah.
they said it was as they were coming onto the Camel Straight in reports.
All right. Okay.
So that's like the top of Radion.
Mm.
Which is where we saw, obviously, Antoine Hubert lost his life there not too many years ago. And yes, reprofiling work has taken place at the corner since then, and the barriers have changed, but we've had another incident. So I think, obviously, an investigation will be taking place. That's probably one of the best things about the governing bodies at times like this is that their investigations are thorough. And even if there isn't a fatality, a big crash like this, there are investigations that take place anyway.
Yeah. Look at Grosjean, Bahrain.
We were lucky in Bahrain that we didn't lose a driver there, but they still launched a full and in-depth investigation. They did so with Hubert's crash. I'm positive they will do the same here. It's, I don't want to say unfortunate, but at the same time, the drivers get into the car knowing the risk. And while that risk is much lower than it might have been in the 60s through the 80s before we started improving all the safety, there is still work we can do. Technology keeps progressing, materials keep improving. We've seen it in recent years that even the flame proofing in the overalls has improved, and the regulations around that changes. So yeah, it's a tragedy that we've lost another young driver, but we have to remember him and learn from it.
Yeah. I have seen a lot question race control's decision to go green in those conditions for a one-lap shootout after a safety car period.
A lot of people
I
were
haven't
saying it.
seen any of the on-track action from it, so
A lot of
I've
people were
It's
saying it was
I've seen
worse than.
pictures, and it's worse than
A
Spa
lot,
21, and we
yeah, a
didn't
lot
go
of
racing
people
in
were saying
Spa.
that. I saw a video because it came up my timeline on Twitter, and it was quite similar to Antoine's accident, where he went on track and then someone just went into him, which
Yeah.
could have been completely avoidable had they not let them go out on track.
Yeah, they could have very easily finished that race
Yeah.
behind the safety car. It was the final lap. There's no need to go racing.
No.
Yes, we all criticised Formula One in 2021, but that was more because of the farce that they went through of sending the cars out for 2 laps behind the safety car, calling it a Grand Prix and going home.
Yeah, just don't send them out at all.
Exactly. Just cancel the race.
Especially because the people in FRAC are a lot younger. Well, some of them are a lot younger, a lot less
They're younger,
experienced.
less experienced. We
And there's
call the
more.
20
And then,
drivers
yeah,
on the Formula One grid the best in the world.
yeah, and there's
There's
a
a
lot more in
reason.
FRAC.
There's a reason that the drivers in FRECA are 3 tiers below Formula One. They're
Yeah.
still learning their craft. They are not the best in the world yet.
And some of them could be 15, 16.
I mean,
Exactly.
he was only, what, 18?
18.
Yeah.
Daniel was 18.
I'd like to point out the driver who was also involved, Adam Fitzgerald. He is alive. He has broken several bones, but is stable. So he is alive. And I think the feeder series account, I think they posted what Adam posted on Instagram, and he was just saying, "I've no words for Delano's family other than I'm truly heartbroken for them. They and Delano are constantly in my thoughts. I just don't know what to say other than my heart is broken for them," which I think we all agree with.
And our thoughts are obviously all with him as well. That it must be really difficult. Look at we've just had the same thing with Juan Manuel Correa. It must be really difficult for Juan Manuel seeing that happen, and then he had to get in the car a few hours later and race in Formula 2. But we just hope that the governing bodies can do something, even if it's that in the wet conditions they're a lot stricter on running in Spa. Because I think what a lot of people said is in the dry, that accident probably wouldn't have happened. Because the visibility would be there. And it was mainly the visibility that it was a big problem. That Formula One are actually doing a test in a couple of weeks of a new system to try and improve visibility in the wet. Basically wheel arches on the back of the cars. This isn't in response to that incident, because obviously these things take a long time to develop.
Been a time coming.
I think it was announced last year.
Yeah, it's been from comments from the F1 drivers about because the car kicks up the spray so much higher, it just lingers, and that's become the new problem in dry running. The high the rooster tail of dirty air off the back of the car has been great because it meant you have a cleaner pocket, but in wet running that means that the air the rain droplets can just sort of linger there, and it has been severely reducing visibility. Japan was another one where they were highly critical of that fact.
But the sport always moves forward. Safety's improved massively from when we first went Grand Prix racing. We just hope that it can take another step forward and another tragic incident like this can be avoided.
We have to remember that crashes aren't uncommon, but thankfully fatalities now are. We've seen massive crashes with great regularity across all series of motorsports, not just within open wheeled, but GT and WEC as well. And most drivers escape relatively unscathed. And that is testament to the safety procedures of not only the regulations, but of the materials and everything involved with it now. So it is sad, but we have to remember that this is a lot less common than it once was.
Yeah. There's a reason that on every ticket and on every paddock pass, it's printed in big bold letters, motorsport can be dangerous. And it's instances like this that just remind us of that fact.
I like that, like whenever you go to any circuit, no matter like which type of motorsport it is, so there's like circuit racing, rallying, they're posted everywhere. It's the massive sign saying motorsport is dangerous, and like massive bold letters, they are posted everywhere. And I imagine the same as, I haven't been to a circuit race, so Chris, you have to back me up on this, but they're posted everywhere.
It's not really on posters, but on every ticket to Formula One, that's motorsport can be dangerous. And as I say, on every paddock pass and stuff, it's got that line in massive letters. And it is things like this that remind us of that. But if there's one solace that we can take, it's that Diallo, although we've lost him, he was doing what he loved. He loved racing. That was what he lived for, and we race on, and we race for him. We race for Antoine. Sorry, we race for everyone that we've lost in the past, and just pray that we lose no one else in the future. With that, sentiment, shall we discuss Austria?
Yeah.
The Max
Let's.
Verstappen show.
Yes, let's move to Formula One. eh, I had hope after free practice one
Why?
because other cars looked good on race pace.
Get a load of this guy.
The,
It's the Red Bull ring.
yeah, but the Mercedes actually was the quickest on pure race pace in FP1. I say FP1, it was a sprint weekend, so just FP.
Definitely wasn't in the race though, was it?
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's what I'm saying. This is from Friday's perspective only.
Yeah, I would like to remind you of how many times last year you looked good on race pace and were absolutely nowhere in the race. You should be used to this by now.
Yeah. But the Mercedes looked good on race pace. The Ferraris didn't look too bad.
Okay, yeah, the Ferraris did look
Ferraris
quite
look
good.
And the Red Bulls looked uncharacteristically slow. I'm like, okay, we could have 2 races on our hands. And then
Red Bull turned it
qualifying
up to
happened.
11.
Yeah. Qualifying happened, and again, the Mercedes looked absolutely crap on 1 lap pace. Sergio Perez couldn't keep it within the white lines.
Neither could a lot
As
of people
became
this
a
weekend.
theme to the weekend.
But let's Q2. You're Sergio Perez. You've been out for 2 runs and you've had 2 lap times deleted. Those lap times are good enough for P2, both of them, but
yeah,
deleted. You're out for a 3rd run. Surely you don't bother trying to get the P2 time because it's only Q2. You just get safe.
Yeah.
You dial it back 5% and you stick it in the lines and you go 6th.
That is literally what his engineer said to him on the radio. Just get a banker lap in.
Yeah.
And then he exceeded track limits and qualified P15.
Yeah.
Was in the dirty air.
It's always, you want to talk about dirty air, wait until we talk about Formula 3 qualifying. Oh my God.
And then George Russell as well. What were Mercedes thinking? He's in 11th, and what did they do? Send him on 4 lap hold softs.
Genius. Top tier.
Usually we praise Mercedes for their strategies in this episode, and we will in a few moments. But that was completely bonkers. Such a stupid decision.
But it's hindsight, so I thought it was a great decision.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did because it helped Lando get through.
Exactly. I was just waiting for that.
But from a purely strategic point of view, like, who thought, oh yeah, that's a good idea? Completely
Clearly
stupid.
Someone.
Yeah. And they should be fired. No, not actually. I'm sure they do great work.
Hamilton way.
I'm sure they do some good work, but that was just silly. And then we came to Q3, and as I said in the stream that I've just uploaded to YouTube, so that'll actually be up before this episode goes out, I think lap of qualifying needs to go to Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
To get it within 500ths of the Ferrari, of the Red Bull.
He's in the Ferrari.
Yeah. To get it within 500ths of the Red Bull is mightily impressive when the Ferraris had looked pretty much nowhere in qualifying up to that point. A very good lap. But, of course, Max Verstappen took pole, and so we all get a point. And then sprint shootout, I was at work, and because I watched the sprint, I didn't bother watching sprint shootout. Anything? I know Hamilton qualified P18. What happened there?
Just didn't get the lap in.
Yeah, he got blocked by traffic on his fast lap. All the Hamilton fans were moaning because Verstappen overtook him and it cost him a lap. But I thought it was very funny, personally. Because Max just finished his lap and he overtook Hamilton into turn 1. there probably wasn't any need, but Verstappen's just doing Verstappen things to annoy Hamilton fans. And then Russell had a issue in Q2 of sprint shootout or whatever you want to call it, shootout 2, whatever.
I think it's
SS.
SQ2.
SS.
It's not S. I think on the graphics it's SQ2.
Oh, see, they all came up as SS online.
On the website for Sprint
Sprint
Shootout, it just
Shootout.
has Q1, Q2, Q3.
Lol.
So yeah, SQ2.
Yeah, he had a hydraulic issue that put him out. Both Hasses got through SQ3 or whatever, so
The top 10.
well done to them. And Lando stuck it on the second row because he's unbelievable driver. And then we had the sprint.
Then we got to the sprint and lap 1. A bit naughty from
Tasty.
But yeah, a bit naughty from both Red Bull drivers.
That was mad.
Checo showing Max the grass and Max just
Okay, Checo showing
sending
Max
it.
the grass is one thing. Checo showing Max the grass in the wet.
Yeah, we should proof it. They're all on intermediate.
Not as wet as it had been earlier in the day.
Yeah. The
junior
F3
category has
sprint
had the
race is
fun of
insane.
that, yeah. But yeah, Checo pushing Max onto the grass in the wet. As soon as I saw turn 3 coming up in Max's position, I knew exactly what was going to happen. It's like, come on, what do you expect? You push someone onto the grass, they're not just going to let it go. They're going to be like, have it back with interest.
It's prime Max Verstappen. It was so good. Is no given. I'm having this.
I'm on the inside line, and you are going to meet the exterior white line of the track.
I wonder if they deleted Sergio Perez's lap time for track limits.
Probably not, because it was so slow.
Yeah, it just slows you down more than. The only
So,
thing with it is that it cost Lando because it put him in anti-stall and he lost about 10 positions.
yeah, that was savage.
But that was probably.
Hulkenberg got into PT from it.
Yeah. Has flying high.
There's a lot of people saying it might have been driver error that caught Lando out. He just didn't catch the clutch or something when he basically had to stop.
It's Verstappen's fault for sending it.
It's Perez's fault for pushing Max onto the grass. That's the chain reaction here.
But yeah, a bit naughty from both Red Bulls.
But to be fair, I feel like Max sends it on Perez in turn 3 anyway, just from turn 1. Because Perez sent it on Max.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's what we forgot to say. Max was pretty naughty into turn 1 and almost showed Perez the wall off the line.
Perez was fully off the track when he overtook Verstappen.
Leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
An illegal.
I think they give a pass for lap 1, especially when the pole sitters just went, no space for you. Because I think if they were penalising Checo for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, they would then have to penalise Max for forcing another driver off the track.
Well, no, because if you've parked there and then he's decided to go around you, that is his conscious decision.
Was it on the inside or the outside that Sergio passed Max?
So Perez is on the pit wall side, so that's the inside of turn 1.
Yeah.
So he's gone onto the pit exit. Well, not the pit exit because that's around the corner, but there's an extra little bit of tarmac there.
Yeah.
That he's gone onto. But Max was already across, and then Perez has gone round him. So
and Sergio did have the right to space though, because he was significantly alongside. So I think they just went lap 1. Because Sergio got the better start in the sprint shootout compared to Max. Max was quicker off the line, but Sergio's car was just quicker in the second phase. And then the race sort of settled down for a bit. Hulkenberg put up a mighty defence, and there's a lot of people being like, "Oh, it will be his first podium," even though it wouldn't. It wouldn't count because it was the sprint. And then both Haas's tyres just fell off a cliff.
Well, that was the thing. They were so good at the start, and that's kind of the Haas philosophy is they're really good at warming up their tyres. just means they eat them.
Yeah.
And on inters and wets, it's not a good thing.
No. And then the track started to dry. It was very quick as well. The changeover point was very sudden.
Just came and went.
It was wet and it was dry. The DRS got enabled. They were still on inters. I think it was Russell that was first to roll the dice.
Yeah, it was. George was the only one to have pitted for softs when DRS had been enabled.
And he timed it perfectly.
Yeah.
What a strategic call from Mercedes. A day after completely fucking it up in qualifying, they get it absolutely spot on in the sprint.
I think that's mostly down to the driver.
Nothing to lose either, though, because he was in 10th.
Yeah, he wasn't in the points. He wasn't in the points, so it was just a gamble, but it was perfect. And he nearly got P7, actually, lost out on that by 9 thousandths of a second.
We love a good photo finish.
Yep.
And yeah, the sprint went from pretty dull to rather exciting in the last few laps.
It was a pretty good sprint.
It was. It's just a shame the crossover point was as late as it was, because it had enabled the top 5.
Yeah, top 5
to sort of build enough of a gap that they didn't need to make that gamble onto the slicks. So even though they were, I think it was 2.5 to 3 seconds a lap slower that Lando was to Alonso behind him, they still sort of just made it, because the end of the Grand Prix was that close. The sprint, not Grand Prix, you know what I mean.
And then we came to Grand Prix Sunday. And the start was significantly less exciting than the day before. And then it became Track Limits City.
Yeah. Lewis being the first to bite the bullet.
Yeah. It started on lap 3 with Lando on the radio. So Lewis's track limits.
Everyone was on it though.
Yeah. It should be noted as well that he did have brake issues, I think it was, and just couldn't slow the car.
I did see every time he came in for his pit stops, he locked up, and I thought he was going to get penalties for speeding in the pit lane. But obviously he managed to slow it enough.
But Mercedes then apparently told Ted Kravitz that it wasn't a malfunction. They just didn't know what was going on. That's what Ted said on the broadcast, but who knows? But yeah, he had brake issues. I don't know what everyone else's excuse was.
I don't know, but at the same time, okay, here's my hot take. Just go slower. It's so much quicker in the long run to shave 0.2, lose 0.2 in a corner, and not run wide,
or a tenth.
Yeah, 0.1, 0.2, whatever, than it is to repeatedly run wide and pick up a 5-second penalty, then a 10-second penalty, and then another 5-second penalty. Like, come on.
Yeah.
They can complain as much as like, I was never over the line. You were over the line. We've complained for years that track limits weren't rigorously applied. They are now being rigorously applied. And now the drivers are being made to look a bit amateurish. And that's on them, really. At the end of the day, they're in control of the car. They know where the line is. You're missing it.
What I did find interesting, though, just on the track limits discussion, was the stewards got involved after the race, and on the final line of the document about the extra track limits infringements post-race, they were like, we strongly recommend that you find a solution to this. Because it does seem to be a situation that is unique to the Red Bull Ring. No other track has such a big problem with track limits.
I would argue historically that Paul Ricard was close second on that, but it was never quite as bad as Austria.
No.
But I did see a rather hilarious tweet with a very practical solution to the issue, and that was a stinger strip on the outside of the car. Run wide, get a puncture. You know, it's a simple yet effective solution. You can't argue with that, really.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if this is just the rib. I liked it when it was the curb that they used, because then you could make even a small mistake, keep it on the curb, and not get penalised by the mistake and by race control.
I don't think you want a curb like that around a corner like that. Though.
You don't want to be out there anyway, because that will eat the underside of your floor.
Yeah.
When if you're on the curb, then you're on the chunky triangular bit next to it.
Yeah, so they're not going to go that far.
No, exactly.
So that's what I mean. Like when they were using the red and white curb as the track limit,
Yeah,
just for 9 and 10.
I don't know, but then you get into the argument of it's not universally applied over the entire season, and what about this corner at this track, and what about that corner?
Yeah.
And you know, you open a whole can of worms, and it's just easier to go blanket rule. This is it. Deal with it.
That's the white line. Use it.
I think they're going to look at putting a gravel trap in there.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, but they had one there before, didn't they?
But I don't think it could be a full gravel trap. It would maybe need to be
shallow one,
part gravel, then concrete afterwards. Because the reason that runoff is so wide is because the corners are so fast. It's the same at Cops. I don't think you could ever put a gravel trap at the edge of Cops, because you dip a tire there and lose it. That's a huge accident.
But just an accident.
Yeah,
that wasn't even on. That wasn't a case of a car spinning in Cops. So that was just contact.
Yeah,
like you get a car spinning in Cops and then contact. It's not going to be good. I mean, look at how big Kvyat's accident in 2020 was, when all he got was a puncture and sent flying with no one around him. Lap 1, chaos. So there's certain corners that a gravel trap couldn't work, full stop, but it would be interesting to see it at 9 and 10. I think the profile of the corners would allow for it.
I think as long as they find a solution that works, everyone will be happy.
We can't have a repeat of this weekend.
The drivers can just keep it in the white line. And
he's on it.
He's
absolutely on it.
It's done. Who'd have thought?
He's joined me on my hot take.
But yeah, we just, regardless of what they decide to do, we can't have a repeat of this weekend.
No, that was ridiculous.
The amount of penalties that were applied post-race is insane.
I love that Aston Martin just went for it, though.
Yeah. Very Lawrence Stroll.
They looked at the list of deleted lap times. That was what they looked at. They didn't look at like the stewards, the list of penalties. They went, there's a lot of deleted lap times here that haven't seemed to have been penalised. Would you like to look at your own evidence again, sir?
The funniest moment of the race, though, was after Nico Hülkenberg retired.
He was given.
Nico Hülkenberg received a black and white flag for track limits about 4 laps after he retired. We had the safety car, and then it was like, oh yeah, black and white flag, Hülkenberg. Huh? He's out.
Well, technically, all 4 wheels are over the white line. So,
but yeah, that was the best moment. I was like, what?
That was a good moment.
I just want to highlight one of the documents from the Aston Martin appeal. So Aston Martin lodged a protest against the provisional results. The protest claims a number of cars were not penalised for a breach of not staying in the white lines regulation number. In the meantime, the stewards having become aware of the existence of a number of deleted laps (brackets due to exceeding track limits) close brackets that were drawn to our attention after the receipt of the protest, have requested race control to perform a reconciliation of all deleted laps with penalties applied. We note that race control dealt with in excess of 100 deleted laps during the race.
Yeah.
God damn.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of laps.
They looked for it just to make sure that Alonso and Stroll wasn't going to get a penalty.
Yep. They were trying to see if they could gain from it, and they did.
Yep.
And that's
But yeah, that led to this wonderful document from the FIA after the race, where, as we say, they changed the rules on track limits infringements, because usually the penalties just build up. This time, because of how many, a reset has been allowed due to the excessive number of infringements. Then the counting restarts after another 4 infringements, a 5-second time penalty, and after 5, a 10-second time penalty will apply. So Lewis Hamilton got caught one more time, got a 10-second time penalty. Carlos Sainz, the same. Gasly, the same. Albon, the same. Albon got caught 10 more times.
Well, Ocon didn't even get like a black and white flag on the TV. So he's got all of this once the race is done. So imagine being Ocon. You just got through the race. You're like, yeah, that's fine. No track limits or anything.
No.
2 hours
10
later. 10
track limits infringements from Ocon.
2 hours later, you got 30 seconds worth of penalties.
Sargent got caught one more time. De Vries got caught 5 more times. And Tsunoda got caught again as well. And then it was, the stewards very strongly recommend that a solution be found to the track limit situation at this circuit. I like that. That's one thing I do like about the stewards. They've been very strong of, we are not the FIA recently.
Oh yeah, it's not their job, is it?
So much so that I think it was at the last Grand Prix, at the end of all the documents, they were like, decisions made by the stewards are made completely independently of the FIA and are just to do with the regulations. Almost like, we are not them. Please. I think the stewards are actually hired by the circuit for each race. I could be wrong, but I think they are. But yeah, track limits city. And Max Verstappen won again. Next race is the UK. But yeah, before we talk about Silverstone, Richard, we need you to give us the prediction results, please.
We had a cracking weekend on the old podiums. The only people that scored, the only driver that gave us any points this weekend was Max Verstappen. So everybody got 6 points. That was it.
Thank you, Chris, for saying that I shouldn't trust Perez.
You're welcome.
Because everyone got a point, because everyone said Verstappen was going to get pole. He was also going to get the sprint shootout pole, and he was also going to win the sprint. So there's 3 points there already.
Either. What's that about?
Everybody said Verstappen was going to win, so they all got 3 points for that as well. So everybody got 6 points, which means there's no change in the leaderboard. Bold predictions. I'm the only one that got it.
And you got 2 points as well.
Oh, yeah.
Rigged.
Hey, they baited me into it, and
we did actually.
I still pulled it off. So, and then
I can't even remember what everyone else's bold prediction was.
Nia's wasn't even hers. It was an Alpine
Podium.
podium.
What even was it? I can't remember.
Chris, you said Alpine podium.
Oh.
Chris, you said Alonso to P2 in the championship. Nope. And Ben went for the Verstappen jinx that didn't work. However, Ben, you do get the consolatory prize of getting the closest on lap down showdown. It was K-Mag that was the first to get lapped at the start of lap 36 while he was in the pit lane. And he finished 1 lap down. Ben, you were closest by saying De Vries 37. 1 lap down. So there you go.
Are we all looking forward to our home race?
Slightly. George
Sort of.
Russell has never scored a point at Silverstone in F1.
I do have some news on Silverstone.
Oh.
According to the BBC, on Saturday and Sunday, it's to rain over the Formula One sessions.
Well, don't trust
Now
the
that
weatherman.
could make things
Yeah,
interesting,
We
couldn't
know
it?
what the weather's like.
Oh yeah, it'll be sunny the whole way through. This is Formula One we're talking about, but at least we can hope.
I will choose to withhold hope for something
Because
more hopeful.
the sprint was wet, and that was good. So
Yeah, that was in an Austrian mountainside.
and this will be in a British airfield.
Yeah, nice and flat. Nothing to force the clouds up and generate some rain. You know.
But it's also Britain, and it likes to rain here, as we all know.
Just not when Formula One's in town.
Well, no, it rained last year.
Yeah, that's true.
We had a wet quali
Qualifying.
last year, and it did start to rain just before the race start, just not enough
Not
for
enough to actually
anything
do
to matter.
anything.
Yeah. And then it immediately stopped before lights out, which was very inconvenient. But good, because I was in an uncovered grandstand and I didn't fancy it raining for the entire race. I've not made that mistake this year.
Oh,
Damn it.
I'm in a covered grandstand on Sunday.
shocking.
Coward.
I was hoping
Setting
you'd
it-
be outside and I'd like, let it absolutely hammer it down.
Sitting at Village. So I'll have a nice view of Village, the Loop, and then the run down the Hangar Straight? Wellington Straight? Which one's the first one?
What, the old
Wellington.
pit straight.
No, that's the the
After
international
turn
straight.
5 is Wellington.
Yeah. Okay, well, a view down the Wellington Straight as well. So it'll be a good place to get some footage from the weekend.
Plenty of flags.
And then obviously Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll just be all around the track. So
Even more flags.
even more flags, yes.
Wow.
Maybe some marshals waving flags.
Don't get your
but
hopes up.
and of course some nice images of the cars and the Formula 2 cars and the Formula 3 cars and the Porsche
Copyright.
Super cars. But shall we do predictions?
Sure.
It's a normal weekend, so we don't need to care about sprint shootout or the sprint. Richard, who's going to be on pole?
Verstappen.
Nia,
Verstappen.
Ben,
Verstappen.
I wanted to be spicy, but no,
Take the
Verstappen.
gamble.
Nah. Max.
What's your podium then?
This is going to be on pure hope. Hamilton, Russell, Alonso.
Hamilton doing what he done in 21 or something.
No, Sergio Perez is going to do that for him.
Right. And then
Ben?
Marco's gonna like.
Then when it comes into
Fire
pit
him,
stop,
yeah.
there's going to be a driver swap and Daniel Ricciardo's going to get in.
Ben, your podium, please.
So I feel like this is the toughest podium to predict all season. Because Ferrari have come back, Mercedes have dropped off. although
Mercedes
they're
are bringing big
upgrades.
upgrades, yeah.
You don't know about Aston.
They're
Aston
probably
have been
gonna
in the
bring
bin the
upgrades.
past couple of weeks.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
literally over the
then-
road, so upgrades are just wheeled out, you know?
And they looked dodgy somewhere else earlier on in the season, and they just popped back up.
Yeah.
So it was at Spain. They were nowhere.
They were
still,
nowhere,
and
yeah.
then went to Canada. Alonso was in P2 or whatever. So I say Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso.
Richard?
I'm just going to go off recent years. Ferrari haven't been bad at Silverstone.
No. They were
So-
the best car at Silverstone last year.
So I'm going for Verstappen, Leclerc as 1-2.
Mhm.
And then see, I've got like three choices here. I can go for the second Red Bull, actually 4 choices. The second Red Bull, the second Ferrari, a Mercedes or an Aston Martin. Any of them could be fighting for that third spot.
What I will say is we remember how in the bin the Mercedes was last season, but at Silverstone it came alive.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm going to pick Perez.
Like,
The Ferraris were the best car in Silverstone last year, and Mercedes was probably arguably second best.
well, I'd still say Red Bull was best. Verstappen was still. The only reason he dropped off is because he had the issue.
Yeah.
Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton.
Bold predictions?
The Red Bulls to tangle on lap 1 again.
I mean, again, they
Sprint.
didn't tangle. They were very close. They didn't.
It
Tangle,
was
though,
just a
did they?
bit of argy-bargy. There was no
Yeah.
contact.
Still,
Good
I'd still say
British
they
racing.
tangled.
Oh, I've written that in the wrong place. Oh, well. There we go. It's fine.
Ben, you're bold.
Piastri top 8.
What would have been very bold if would be if you said De Vries top 10.
De
That'd be
Vries to finish
stupid.
penalty
That's what
free.
that would be.
Richard.
See, Lando had a good race this time.
Yeah, I was going to say Lando, but I don't want to jinx him.
No, that's exactly why I'm just like, what else can I just avoid? I will say, against maybe my better judgment, and I'm now desperately just going to go back and check the Austrian results. Okay, that's a reasonable, that's bold because he's an idiot. Double Alpine points.
Neil?
Paris absolutely been it all weekend.
All weekend.
Every
I'd be
session.
like- every session be
Perez,
Well,
rubbish.
What are
every
we
session.
classing as? That needs to be clear.
Are we doing it in a time delta, as in at least this amount of time off Max's time? Are we doing
God,
it in
no.
positions?
No.
positions, so I can't do time.
I mean, you
So
could say
below P what?
at least half a second slower than Max at each session is not unreasonable to say, is it?
No,
Yeah.
we'll say that.
No, but
No,
I
no,
can
no. This
agree
is
with
your
that.
bold
This is your
prediction.
prediction. Stop stealing my stuff.
And you've already
Perez
said
is
you want to do it by
automatically allowed the
position.
second
Uh,
best.
So below P what?
Below P8.
Every
Get
session.
out.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's cars,
Yeah.
it's a
Can't wait for him to pop it in 7th in practice 1.
Can I change my podium?
No. He's not on there anyway.
Yeah, but I'll put Perez there.
Shall we talk junior categories? Oh, lap down showdown.
Oh yeah.
He always forgets the lap down showdown.
I remembered before we moved on. It's okay.
We need to shout out Nick De Vries again.
I'm gonna go with Nick De Vries.
Okay. There's
How many-
52 laps.
Thank you. Nick De Vries 27-1.
Nia.
Nia.
I'll go with Sergeant. 25-1.
Ben.
I'm gonna say Bottas
Okay.
and 34-1.
I'm going to
Richard?
continue the trend of picking a different driver for each of us, and I'm actually going to go for Sonoda.
Sergio Perez.
No, I'm going to go for Sonoda. I think he might just get caught up in an incident and end up at the back.
He'll be caught in the Red Bull tangle.
Turns out Perez has been given the AlphaTauri for the weekend and it's just camouflaged in the Red Bull livery.
Okay, so Sonoda, and I'm going to say lap 52 laps. Do I want to go early or late? I'm going to go late. I'm going to say they're going to make it past the pit stop window before they get lapped. So I'm going to go for 40.
Ooh, that's very late.
It is very late. And therefore just one lap down.
Yeah.
2 laps. He's going to get lapped and lapped again.
All right. Junior categories time.
But just before we move on, I've got a little note in my book here.
Oh, what's that?
That says Nia
Oh,
Cameron prediction.
yeah.
Because he gave her one last week for this week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he said Alonso or Sainz to win this race. So Silverstone.
Oh, so he just wanted to play the podium game.
But there is 3 people on a podium.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's done a third of that already, so.
If there is
Right.
only 2 people on a podium, I am worried.
We're almost back to Monaco 96.
All right. Junior categories.
Formula 2.
Formula 3 and Formula 2 qualifying. Let's do them as one because it was basically a repeat.
Formula 3 qualifying is something I want to talk about. Now, we have a thing in Monaco where we split the qualifying into groups for the sake of the circuit's not long enough.
Yeah, there's
It's
30 drivers or something.
There's 30 drivers in Formula 3. And I think the same thing should be applied to the Red Bull Ring.
Yes.
Um,
What I found really funny, though, is on their first lap, all the drivers behaved themselves. And then it was after their first lap that it was just absolute chaos. It was the same in Formula 2.
So I think we need to introduce that rule from Monaco as to not just Monaco, but a minimum circuit length. So anything under that length, groups. Because that would avoid the absolute car park that was Formula 3 qualifying that we saw in Austria this weekend.
Yeah.
Now, the Austrian track is under 4.5 kilometers. So I think that's probably a good cut-off point, 4.5K. Anything under
or
that,
even do it by lap time as well.
Yeah, that's also an option.
Anything below an average of, I can't remember exactly what the Formula 3 cars were doing, but a 120.
Obviously, you do it by category at that point. So, so the Formula 2 qualifying times were 1:14s and some change for the quickest times. The Formula 3s were 1:20s and some change for the quickest time. So, it has to be per division.
Yeah, no, of course.
But that is an alternative way to do it as well, as against track length.
But yeah, we absolutely need to fix that. But we did have an entertaining qualifying session in both categories, which then led on to the Formula 3 sprint race, which kicked off the racing for the weekend, as it always does. That was interesting in the wet.
Yeah.
Race control made some curious decisions at the start. So we went off for 2 formation laps behind the safety car, and then race control just went, standing start. Which is very weird to see. Usually when we start off behind the safety car, we have a rolling start. And that's the whole point of starting behind the safety car.
Maybe they decided it was okay enough based on
dry enough.
Based on the feedback of the drivers. Because that's really what they listen to on those reconnaissance laps, we'll call them.
And then there was
just
Joseph Maria Marte being like, no, please, no standing start. And he was on pole.
Understandable. Everyone behind him is like, give me a standing start. I'm going to get a jump on him. Guy in front, rolling.
And then instead, it was actually Gabriel Mini that everyone got the start on. No, sorry. It wasn't Gabriel Mini. It was... Who stalled? Was it Gotha?
Oh, Ollie Goethe, yeah.
Yeah, Ollie Goethe stalled on the line.
I'm amazed nobody.
And thankfully no one hit him. Yeah. Everyone got through. Which was very good and a testament to the skill of the drivers. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lights out, and everyone goes away except Ollie, who just sat there. That must be terrifying as a driver.
I think that is my new worst fear, is the wet bit of it. Stalling on the grid is one thing, because you're kind of just sat there waiting to get hit. But stalling on the grid in the rain, the spray just completely removes the visibility. So I think stalling from the front in the rain, because then by the time the other cars have got up to you, there's going to be a level of spray behind you. Stalling at the back in the rain is stalling at the back in the dry, really, isn't it? So but yeah,
it does show the effectiveness of the race start marshalling system, though. That from the second he didn't get away, there was yellows flashing right the way down the grid from his grid box back. So everybody knew there was an issue, and so kept it clean.
Yeah, very good start from everyone in those conditions to keep it as clean as it was.
Yeah, there wasn't a lap 1 incident.
No, which was
in fact,
quite impressive.
There wasn't really a major incident until toward the end of the race when 2 drivers crashed.
Yeah, it wasn't a clean.
There's so many names to remember. Like,
no, I know, and I watched it earlier, and
I watched it earlier today as well.
But it was the fact that Pepe Marti was at the front when the safety car came out, 7 laps from the end, something like that. And then
just wasn't.
Once the safety car came in, he was gone. He was eaten up by everyone.
As it turns out, it was lap 10 that that the incident happened. So
it was quite early on.
10 laps to the end. So half race distance.
But yeah, after the safety car came in, Pepe Marti just got eaten up by the pack and ended up finishing 6th.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it was Ollie Gray and Rafael Villagomez that came together. I think Ollie Gray was on the inside of turn 4, and as we've seen in many categories in the past, just completely washed out.
Bonk.
Tagged him, and then just drove into him again.
Yeah,
and off came his wheel.
Yeah,
it was like an F1 game accident.
That was the bit I found most confusing about that, was the second contact. But
yeah, but it was genuinely like a incident in the F1 game.
Yeah, you survive the first impact, and your wing comes off, and then and then your wheel just yeets itself out. Still don't understand the physics in that game.
And then the race was won by Paul Aron from Gabriel Mini, and Kyle Collette rounded off the sprint race podium. And then we went to the feature, again for Formula 3, Richard. You've seen it. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. Talk us through the main points.
Mostly dry, really. It was sort of a much more run-of-the-mill event. Montoya started to make a bit of a charge towards the end and tangled with Franco Colapinto, I believe, on the last lap, which cost both of them their shot at third on the podium and gifted it to Caio Collet.
Although Colapinto did still finish fourth.
Yeah, Colapinto came off better from it. He was on the inside. Montoya was in the gravel and rejoined in 10th. And then was hit with a post-race penalty of, I believe, 10 seconds to dump him down into 20th for his causing a collision.
Yes, 10-second time penalty.
Yeah. Other notes were Sophia Flörsch's car. She finished 9th on the road, but was
got her
disqualified.
First ever. I was just about to come to that. Sophia Flörsch thought she had her first ever points in Formula One. And then the technical delegate, Formula 3.
There we go.
Then the technical delegate found out that her front wing end plate was a few millimeters out of position.
Too low.
The team had said that she clouted the curb, and that's what caused it. The stewards went, "Oh well, that's a shame," and disqualified her.
It's a rough one. Especially with curbs like the ones around Austria, it is a rough one. So yeah, but unfortunately, I guess that's the rules, isn't it? So
yeah, that's basically what always happens. If you've got a technical non-conformity, you can almost expect to be disqualified.
It's just a shame that it could well be circuit related. You know, we kind of have to take that at face value that we're not entirely sure of what it was.
Yeah. So the steward said this. The team explained that they'd set up the car on the limit and checked it. The stewards accept the team's assertion that at one point the car hit the curb. While this could explain the non-compliance, it does not forgive it. The stewards determined to apply the standard penalty for a technical infraction, e.g. disqualification. So that's unfortunate for Sophia, but if she's got to 9th on the road once, she can do it again.
Yeah, there were some other absolutely stonking drives through the field, though.
Alejandro Garcia got himself a 10-second stop-go penalty during the race for breaching the minimum delta time for 10 consecutive marshalling sectors during the safety car period prior to crossing the first safety car line twice. In other words, he went too fast.
Jesus.
Oh, that's what we forgot to talk about in terms of safety car. It's just reminded me. Lando Norris's appeal
I just found
against his 5-second time penalty in Canada was thrown out by the stewards.
Leonardo Fornaroli went from, I believe, let me just double check this. Qualifying results.
Oh, well, this is Formula 3. Check the final starting grid. Okay,
can you?
Who are we looking at?
Leonardo Fornaroli, car number 4.
30th.
Yeah.
Dead last.
Finished P10 in the feature race.
So much so that he needed permission to start from the stewards, so he must have set a time outside the 107.
Yep, and he came 10th.
Yeah.
How's that for a Sunday drive? 30th to points.
He massively set a time out of the 107. 29th was lap time was a 1:22.3. Leonardo's was a 1:46.4.
Oh, he's had his lap time deleted then, hasn't he?
I think they said they just couldn't hook it up.
Oh, well. They did on Sunday.
Yeah.
But the final podium for Formula 3 was Zach O'Sullivan, Gabriel Bortoletto, and Caio Collet. So the top 10 for the standings. Bortoletto leads the way, 111 points. Then it's Pepe Marti on 75, tied with Dino Beganovic in third, also on 75. Zach O'Sullivan is in fourth on 73. Gabriella Mini and Paul Aaron are tied on points at 65, but Mini is ahead on countback. Franco Colapinto is in seventh on 60 points. Gregoire Saucy bumps up the table to eighth on 49. Luke Browning is in 9th on 38 points, and Leonardo Fornaroli is now in 10th on 30.
If I remember right, Saucy only scored 1 point this weekend, and that was pole position.
2 points.
2 points for pole in Formula 2. No. Because he went from first to last in the feature race. I don't think you're supposed to do that, but
It's
he
supposed to be the
did.
other way around on the game, isn't it?
Formula 2, again, Richard, you've seen it. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. Talk us through it.
Sprint race was a bit wet.
As wet as Formula 3?
No, because the Formula 3 sort of dried it out a bit. And it just
and wouldn't the sprint actually been after Formula 1's sprint?
Yes.
Yeah.
The interesting bit was was it the sprint or was it the feature that there was a split between what tyres people started on, because obviously Formula 2 doesn't have inters.
Yeah,
and
it's dries or wets.
In one of the races, there was a mix of somebody started on
You'd
dries,
have to imagine it would be the sprint.
Yeah. But the sprint was kind of meh, to be honest. The most amazing bit of racing was the last 6 laps of the feature race. If you're going to go watch anything, just watch that, because there was a late safety car. It gets called in. The guys that were on the alternative tyre strategy, so finished the race on the softer set of tyres, had incredible pace. And it just go and watch it, because it's some fantastic Formula 2 driving. It means that 12 months after crossing the line first, but then later being disqualified for a technical infringement, Richard Verschoor wins the Austrian Grand Prix. He hasn't been disqualified as of time of recording, so there's still time.
And the final classification has been published. He's safe.
He's safe. He's got it this year. But no, the amount of times they kept bringing it up in commentary was like, can you let the man just like live?
Drive. Just let him drive.
But no, that was a really good bit of racing there. It was Verschoor and Iwasa on newer sets, and Fred Vesti, Jack Doohan, Ollie Behrman, all just trying to like live with their really bad old soft tyres. So the sprint podium was Jack Crawford, Victor Martins, and Isaac Hadjar. And the feature race podium was Richard Verschoor, Ayumu Iwasa, and Fred Vesti, which means that's the top 10 of the drivers' standings. Fred Vesti continues to lead the way. He's on 125 points. Teo Porcher remains in second. He's on 105, but Ayumu Iwasa has closed the gap. He's now in third on 101. Ollie Behrman is in fourth on 81. Richard Verschoor is now in fifth on 75. Dennis Hauger is sixth on 60 points. Victor Martins is seventh on 58. Emerson Fittipaldi is 57 points in eighth place. Jack Doohan is in ninth on 54. And Kush Miney, who had a bit of an incident with Fittipaldi in the race, actually. He's in 10th on 49 points. It was a bit of a naughty one, and I did want to see if he'd been penalised for it. Chris, do you have any documents on
that? Which race?
Feature.
Sprint. Car number 16. Sorry, car number 24. Drive through converted to a 20-second time penalty, forcing another driver off the track.
Yeah, that tracks. So it was.
We also had another disqualification. Clement Novalak was disqualified from third in the sprint race for a technical non-conformity.
Oh, that is a shame.
And there's also a strange stewards document that I'm going to ask you about. Did anything happen at the end of the sprint race? Because after the race, a document has been published reducing the length of the race by 1 lap.
Don't know. Didn't see that bit. But the incident with Kushmani was exit of turn 3 straight down to turn 4. Fittipaldi has come on the cutback, so he's on the right-hand side, and Miney's just pushed him onto the grass.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Very nice of him.
So that ended Fittipaldi's race because the grass is wet. Whee! and around he went. Luckily, wasn't collected by any of the cars that were pretty close behind. But yeah, no, that was when I watched that back. It was like, that's a slam dunk. So,
yeah, he got a drive-through for it.
good.
So very much so.
Good. But
although it did seem to take a while because Fittipaldi's race ended on lap 17, so there was 10 more laps. So they obviously took a while to decide on it.
I'm pretty sure it came up like they'll investigate it after the race, sort of thing. It was one of those ones. They love doing those, don't they?
Yeah, which is a bit pointless if the driver they're going to apply a drive-through penalty to is still in the race. If they're both out, fair enough.
Yeah.
But if one of them is still in the race, investigate it. But they do love doing that in the junior categories. It's always, we'll look later. We're having a cup of tea just now.
Other beverages are available.
Yes. But yeah, that wraps up this week's episode of the Turn 5 podcast, I believe, unless there's anything else.
There was one thing in Formula 3 that I found really amusing. At one point in the race...
Which race?
Feature, I think. It was... Who was it overtaking? Bortoletto. Bortoletto overtook someone and gave the push signal to the guy who was overtaking. It was Dino Beganovic who was overtaking. And commentary picked up on it. It was like, he's just given Dino the push signal to work together to break the toe. Wild. They're not on the same team, but he's gone, can we work together on this? That's not something I've ever seen before.
No.
In any racing.
One of the best bits of racing I saw was in the sprint, Formula 3, where I think it was Mini trying to get past, and they left a space on the inside of turn 3. I can't remember who it was, just sent it and overtook 2 cars because they were too busy tripping over each other, and he just went, okay, bye.
See you later.
Yeah, it was brilliant. But yeah, that wraps up this week's episode of the Turn 5 podcast. Thank you all very much for listening. We will see you next week for the Silverstone review with views from the circuit. Until then, ta-ra for now.